We're talking about how to start an LLC in Alabama, and what you can see behind me here is what I'm casting is a checklist of how to get an LLC set up. But as we go through this checklist and the different items in it, we're going to be talking about the things that you need to avoid when getting your LLC set up. So I like to call this the LLC dumpster fire. And what that is you get your LLC set up, but you rush through it and you don't fully understand what it does for you. And then down the line, maybe it's a year or two out, you have tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees because you didn't do things correctly. So to be able to understand things better, what we're going to be talking about is terms such as piercing the corporate veil, registered agents, commingling funds, pass-through taxation, and we're also going to be explaining things such as how does the LLC renewal process work, and then things such as business licenses and permits and getting those set up. To better understand all these topics, what we're going to do is we're actually going to zoom out a little bit, and what we're going to be talking about is what an LLC actually does for your business so that we can go through these different topics. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how to get your LLC set up in the state of Alabama. Now, what we're going to do first here is talk about two things. The LLC offers what is called limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. And how we're going to explain this is through a couple different examples. The first one here is owning a coffee shop without an LLC. And stick with me here because we are going to get to this checklist of setting up your LLC, but trust me, this is going to make everything click into place for you and understanding what your LLC does for you. So first example. You have an example here of a business owner in the center, and on the left-hand side, you have their personal home, personal car, personal bank account. And on the right-hand side, you have the coffee shop, the point of sale, business bank account, the actual location, the espresso machine, the lights. All of these things are directly tied back to the business owner themselves. In this particular case, you have a lot of potential liability. That's because owning a business can create liability for you, but you can see everything is connected to the business owner. Now let's look at an example of owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop. This is very different. Now what you see here is the business owners on the left-hand side with their personal assets, and on the right-hand side, we're calling it Acme Coffee LLC, and the LLC has the business assets underneath it. And that line in the middle, this red line here, that's very pronounced, that is the corporate veil. What that corporate veil does is it draws a division between your business and personal assets, and it's very important. And the reason for that is in the case that you were to be sued. Now, let's go up to the top here again. We talked about piercing the corporate veil, and I also want to talk about commingling funds. Now, this is a great example of just one little thing that can create a crack in your LLC that can create a ton of headaches for you, and you end up in the LLC dumpster fire. So let's say that somebody were to get hurt at your coffee shop and they hire an attorney because they want to sue you. And then what happens is that attorney is going to look for cracks in your LLC. One potential crack is if you're taking your personal bank account over here and you are running business transactions through it. They call this commingling funds. So you have your personal transactions and your business transactions happening through a personal bank account. Now, if the attorney is able to present this information to the judge and the judge agrees with them, what they can do is something called piercing the corporate veil. What that does is it gets rid of this division in between your personal and business assets. You can probably see where this is going. If that happens, when they sue you, they can come after your business assets and your personal assets. That means your personal car, personal home, personal bank account. That's why not only setting up the LLC is important, but knowing everything that goes around the LLC and how to maintain it properly is equally as important. Now, if we go down here a little bit, what I want to do is talk about an explanation of pass-through taxation. Now, this isn't necessarily an issue with like cracks in your LLC, but I just want you to know when it comes to tax time what you're looking at. Now, for pass-through taxation, the way that works is, let's say Acme Coffee LLC grossed $140,000, and then they had $90,000 of expenses. Well, the net income would be $50,000 in this case, and that $50,000 would flow through or pass through, those are different ways of saying it, to the business owner. And then the IRS is taxing the actual business owner, not the business. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. There's a small mention underneath here that you can apply a S-Corp designation to reduce your tax burden in the future. This is something that's a little bit more advanced, not super advanced, but it's basically once you start making $40,000 to $50,000 of net income, there's some other options out there for you. The nice thing about the LLC is it's very flexible. You can actually choose to do an S-Corp designation and tax it like an S-Corporation later on, and this can help you out with taxes. This is all part of a video series that we've prepared for you for here. This is going to be more so video 3 in the series, but just wanted to make you aware that as you're watching this, I highly encourage you to watch all the videos in the series because it's going to set you up for success in year 2, year 3, and beyond. Now, what I want to talk about is this checklist to start your LLC. Well, the first thing is just get this checklist for yourself. It's free to get. There's a QR code on the screen that you can scan. There's a link in the description below. And what it's going to do is not only help you through the process of setting up your LLC, but there's also some cool bonuses in here. If you go to the bonus section, you can see there's an AI chatbot here. And with the AI chatbot, what you can do is the stuff such as how to start an LLC in Alabama. So when you do this, it's going to put together a tailored list of the steps you need to take in Alabama. Now, if you want to know how to register an EIN, it can help you out with that as well. We're actually going to discuss what an EIN is later in this actual video, but just know that there's a cool resource there for you. There's also a yearly accounting calendar, really key to understand these important dates. In video 3, we're going to explain what these dates are, and this will be updated annually as well for each year. So if it's beyond 2024, we can talk about that as well. Future tax savings, free CPA advice, free charitable opportunity when you're getting your LLC set up are all in here. Glossary of terms is also very helpful if there's anything that you're unfamiliar with. We're going to be talking about foreign LLCs in the next video, and in this video, we're going to get into fictitious business names, which is really important to understand. So next what we're going to do is decide which route you want to go. State site, you want to use an online legal tool or LLC services, or do you want to go through a business attorney? Well, when you're going through the state site, the advantages is that you're not going to be upsold into many different things, but the disadvantages is it's just going to handle the state level items, and it's not going to give you a lot of different extra features. So like if you want to set up a business website or a business domain or a business email or handle payments for your customers, you're not going to get these options that are available on the online LLC services. If you go through a business attorney, the pros there is that the attorney can really dial things in for you, but it's going to be very expensive as well. For the sake of this video, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the state website and specifically through the Articles of Organization. That's the document that you actually submit to the Secretary of State to start your LLC. But before you get to that, what you have to do is decide on a name for your LLC. Well, the one mistake I see here sometimes is that people put so much pressure on themselves to come up with the perfect LLC name. And frankly, it's not something that has to be perfect. And the reason for that is your LLC name could be something like Acme Coffee LLC, which is a terrible name for a coffee shop. But then you can have something underneath it called a DBA, a doing business as, or a fictitious name that we kind of teased earlier. What those do is that's the actual brand name that'll exist. So you can have Espresso Yourself Cafe be the DBA or fictitious name, and then it exists underneath the LLC. So you don't have to have the perfect LLC name, but what you do want is you want to make sure that it is unique within your state and in the business category that you're in. Now, what you can do is search for the availability of your business name. If you click here, there's a state directory, and then we're just going to scroll down to Alabama, which is first in alphabetical order, which is handy. And then for the name, let's say that you do Roll Tide, right? Because you're like, oh, that would be fun. Why don't we get that name? Well, what you're going to find is there's going to be a lot of Roll Tide business names. So there might be a Roll Tide Car Wash, Roll Tide Consultants. There's so many different Roll Tides that may be a difficult name for you to own in your business category. Now, if I just kind of hit the keyboard like this and do a search, now what you're going to see is no matches found. Now, that's what you want to see with your LLC name. You want to make sure that it is a unique name that is available within the state of Alabama. Now, once you have that name, what you can do next is to get started with the process of forming your LLC. We're going to talk about these 3 items right here, right now. Now, you might be wondering, like, what's the difference between registering your LLC name or filing your Articles of Organization? Well, as I mentioned before, the Articles of Organization is the actual process of getting your LLC formed with the state. When you register your LLC name, what you're doing is you're securing the actual LLC name. Now, it's kind of like if you're to set up a website, you can get the domain name and then later you actually build the website. Like getting the domain name doesn't mean you actually have a website set up. Registering your LLC name doesn't mean that you actually have an LLC secured. It just secures the actual name. What we're going to do is we're going to click on the state directory list though here, and this is going to give us some bullet points. And again, all this information is included for free in the checklist that you can get in the description below. But these bullet points will cover the Articles of Organization. But then when you go to your state, typically what you'll find here is they'll give you this information. There's a state filing fee of $200. There is no way around that filing fee. You are paying that to the Secretary of State to file your LLC. Now, if you go through the state website, you're paying it. If you go through an online legal tool or if you go through a business attorney, you're paying that $200. But we're looking at a domestic LLC procedure, and we're going to click on this PDF and just kind of cover some of the important aspects of this right here. So again, you see the $200 fee right here. The first line here is just asking you for the name, and it must contain limited liability company. A copy of the name reservation certificate from the Office of Secretary of State must be attached. So in Alabama, that's what they call it, the name reservation certificate. If you go through the state website, you will find that as well. Again, going back here. What you can do is, here you can find that name reservation for domestic entities. So it's an additional half step not all states have you do. This is where if you go through an online legal tool, a lot of times they can condense all this for you in one experience. It's also nice because those online legal tools, a lot of them have packages that start at $0 plus state fee. So in your case, it would be the $200. What to be wary of is there's going to be a lot of different upsells available. That's up to you if you want to partake in those upsells or not. So my advice in Alabama is, because it requires 2 steps in the process, and it's not really clear when it comes to things such as registered agents, it may be a better fit to go with an online legal tool. But again, let's progress through the actual document here of filing the articles of organization. The name of the registered agent, only one agent, and then it says street, no P.O. box, address of the registered agent must be located in Alabama. So at least they do provide some information here as far as the fact that, yes, they have to have a physical address in the state of Alabama, and it cannot be a P.O. box. But you might be wondering like, what is a registered agent? Well, what the registered agent is a third party that handles important documentation and communication for your business. Now, going back to the example of, let's say you're being sued, they're going to make sure that you get the proper documentation. It's called a service of process notice, so that when you're showing up to court, you have all the documents and information that you need. It's a very important aspect of managing and maintaining your LLC. The thing that's kind of a bummer is they don't really tell you like who to put on here. Again, if you go with an online legal tool, a lot of them will provide professional services for you. One of them in particular actually has this service for free for the first year. So a lot of times people like to go that route because they want to know that a professional is handling these services. Now, the underside certify that there's at least one member of the limited liability company. Yes. Typically, most people are doing this on their own. If you are in a partnership or you're already earning income inside of the business over $40,000, that's where you may want to consult with a business attorney, because partnerships can be a little bit more to figure out and manage. This here has the effective date. If you're looking at getting this set up right away, you would just put in today's date and then sign and then put all this information in. So then what you're going to do is you're going to mail this in with the $200 check for the Secretary of State. Most people, if you do go the state route, you just go through the online state program. You have to just create a login, and you can do all these things on the actual state website. But again, it's up to you if you want to use the state website or different tools out there for you. But what I want to talk about next now is, after you file your articles of organization, is you can create and sign an LLC operating agreement. The LLC operating agreement is basically something that spells out who the members of the LLC are, what are their roles and responsibility, but it can also highlight like what happens if one of the members want out of the LLC. Let's say that your coffee shop does really well, you have 15 locations, but your business partner wants out. Well, how do you determine what the value of the business is for them when they want to exit the business? Well, if that's spelled out in the operating agreement, that becomes a case of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, because you just point to the operating agreement. But if you don't have one in place, that's where it can be tens of thousands of dollars in litigation and legal fees to figure this stuff out. So I highly suggest getting an operating agreement in place. The state's not going to help you with that. Online legal tools will have a boilerplate template that you can figure out and be able to use just to get something set up. Or you can go through a business attorney who's really going to dial it in. But again, there's pros and cons to every single route that you go. The more complex your business is, like you have offices in and out of state, you got a business partner, you're already making good money, that's where you may want to hire a business attorney. Do you have to get it set up to get your LLC actually formed? No, but it's just a good idea to get that set up. Now, after LLC formation, you want to set up an EIN. There's a link here for an IRS link, and what it is an employer identification number. This is like a social security number for your business, for the IRS to be able to identify your business. If you want to do things such as run payroll, you're going to need an EIN. It also looks more professional when you're applying for things such as like business insurance or business loans or trying to get an office space. If you have an EIN that you can put on the form instead of your social security number. So this link right here will walk you through this. It's free to set up. If you go through online legal tools, they'll kind of include this typically in a mid-tier package, so there is a little bit of cost for it, but they can handle this for you as well. Now, next I just want to talk about business licenses and permits. Now, a lot of people think they get their LLC set up and they're done. Depending on your business category, you may need a license and permit. And a good example of this would be like, let's say you're opening up a brewery. Well, you're brewing beer, you're distributing beer, and perhaps you're serving beer on premise. Those three different things could require licenses and permits, and those can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. The thing that I would recommend is you can start off on the local level. You can call your town or city clerk and just say, hey, I'm opening up this type of business. I just wanted to know if there's any permits that are necessary. Sometimes they may be able to help you out with things that are on the county level or the state level. Also with the online legal tools, those will let you know specifically what licenses and permits are required for your business type. So if you're a little bit worried about that, you can do that for an extra fee and have them do that research for you. Now, what I want to talk about next is the next video in the series is we're really going to deep dive on if you should go with the state route, online tools, or the attorney. So what we're going to be talking about in this are the fees associated with setting up your LLC. Below here is an embedded cost calculator. It is going to show you down to the dollar what it costs to maintain and own and operate that LLC, not just to get it set up, but for 5 years what that cost is going to be. So we're going to explain how you can use that cost calculator. There's star ratings. We're just going to explain the differences and where these ratings come from when you're comparing the different options out there. There's also why state websites become a pain, and that has to do with domestic versus foreign LLCs, which we're going to get into in the next video. And then we're also just going to go through different questions worth asking on if a business attorney might make sense for you. Now, even if these questions don't apply to you today, I really recommend that you watch the next video, because there's going to be certain things like down the line you may want to own your own office space, and what does that look like? So there may be different things that apply to you that you want to consider. Or if your business starts to make more than $40,000 in net profit in a year, how do you save on taxes with the S Corp? We're going to be talking about those things in the next video. So again, I highly suggest you get the checklist. There'll be a link in the description below, and I'll catch you in that next video.